Hey there, y'all. So today I'm here to talk a little bit about shot placement on deer with a muzzle loading rifle. And I'll tell you what prompted me to make this little video. I've been very blessed and had quite a few deer that I've shot with a muzzle loader, but I dropped them in their tracks or dropped them pretty close. And I've had quite a few people send me comments on the videos asking me about the load I was using. And really, it's not so much about the load, the type of bullet or the type of powder or the type of gun, as it is the shot placement. And so that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit today. All right, so one thing I do want to say right off the bat is I don't claim to be any kind of an expert on muzzle loading or the muzzle loading equipment and the different types of guns and loads. I'm just going to share what I do and answer some of the questions I've had and talk a little bit about shot placement and how that can really affect your outcome of your hunt. So I shoot a real basic load, a 250 grain bullet. Here's a picture of the bullet. That happens to be a Tradition Smackdown. It's a ballistic tip with a plastic sabot. And for powder, I shoot 777, 100 grains. And this is a real common type of load. A lot of people are shooting something similar. And so I started muzzleloader hunting many years ago, back in the 80s. And one thing I noticed for the first few years of hunting, I would see a deer, shoot it behind the shoulder through the rib cage, which was a good shot, but the deer would run. And of course I would get them, they would die, but a lot of times they would run farther than I would really expect them to. And also I would notice a lot of times I didn't get good blood trails. And what I was seeing was I would have the hole going in and hole going out with that very little bullet expansion. And I got to thinking about it, and I think a lot of that is because a muzzleloader bullet's traveling pretty slow, and it just doesn't have the same velocity like a high-powered rifle. And unless that bullet comes into contact with some bone, a lot of times the bullet just doesn't expand, and that's why you get that small hole in and the same size hole going out. And even though it's a lethal hit, that deer still could run a little ways. And of course, I hunt in these mountains. Last thing I want is for a deer to go very far. If a deer runs a couple hundred yards down the side of a mountain, that can mean a lot of extra work trying to get him out of the woods. And ideally as hunters, we want to make good, clean, humane kills. And there's nothing feels better than to be sitting there in your stand and shoot your deer and he's laying right there. You don't have to look for him. So what I started doing was shooting deer higher up in the shoulder and a little farther forward in the shoulder blade area. And I immediately started getting a lot better results. If you hit that big shoulder blade or the bone structure there in that area, that bullet is going to expand, and you're going to get a much better wound channel and a much better exit wound, which is going to bring the deer down quicker, have a lot more blood. And a lot of times when you hit that shoulder blade, you cripple the deer and take him down off his feet instantly. And I have a lot of videos to prove that. And, we'll put a couple clips in here and show you. And I actually have a deer shoulder blade bone right here just to kind of show for illustration. So there's the shoulder blade. That's called the scapula bone. And, it's a fairly large bone. And I'll pop up a picture here of the anatomy in a minute. But this bone connects to a lot of large bone right here. If you hit anywhere in this area with that muzzleloader bullet, you're going to get good expansion. See, this bone is thick. You can see how fairly thick it is right there. And that impact of hitting this large bone is also what often takes the deer right off his feet. And like I say, I have videos I can show you, and I'll put them on here and we'll prove that. All right, so next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna actually go out here and shoot. I set up a little target, and I'm gonna try to see if it will illustrate the bullet expansion by going through the bone, or in this case, it's gonna be a piece of wood to replicate the bone, and we'll see how that works out. All right, so what we're gonna try to do today is a little muzzleloader bullet expansion test, and I'll show you a target I made up and explain what I'm trying to do. All right, so this little target I made is the front of it. I made out of some 1/2-inch plywood, and reason I did that is I think the plywood will replicate shooting through the bone, the shoulder blade scapula bone, and so we're going to try this, and we want to see when it exits out the back. I got a thin piece of panel on the back, and we'll see what kind of an exit hole we get to prove out the expansion. And so in the middle, I've got this sealing tiles. It's a real soft material, and I think that'll do a pretty good job of replicating the bullet traveling through the deer. So we'll see what happens. Like I say, this is very non-scientific. We're just going to give it a try. So I got the target sitting down there about 50 yards away, and that's usually what I shoot in woods, thick woods that I hunt. About that range is very common, so that's why I'm using that yardage. All right, so I went down there and got the target. I didn't make too good a shot. I hit low there for some reason. I don't know why. But anyway, went through the plywood on the front. And when you look right there on the back, you can see that it had some really good bullet expansion. It came out of there and made a big hole. So, you know, if you're shooting at a deer and you bust that shoulder blade and expand that bullet, this is the kind of exit wound you're going to get. So you're going to get, you know, good blood trails and a lot of organ damage. And, you know, it blew through that ceiling board too, made a big hole. So again, I know that's not a scientific test by any means, but I do think that kind of proves the point about bullet expansion with these big heavy muzzleloader bullets. Good shot, son. He is down.
He wouldn't move. He was right there.
Way to go. You dropped him. Wherever you are. Great shot, son.